Imagine this. You walk into a store to buy a new smartphone. Last year, it cost $999. Today, that same phone costs $1,149. Your first thought? Inflation. But what if I told you that inflation isn't the whole story? What if part of that price increase comes from a government policy that most Americans have heard of, but very few truly understand? That policy is called a tariff. And right now, tariffs are one of the hottest topics in American finance. Some people believe tariffs protect American jobs. Others argue they raise prices, hurt consumers, and create uncertainty in the stock market. So, what's the truth? Are tariffs making America stronger? Or are they quietly taking money out of Americans' pockets? To answer that, we first need to understand what a tariff actually is. A tariff is simply a tax placed on goods imported from another country. Let's say a US company imports laptops from overseas. If the government imposes a 20% tariff on those imports, the company suddenly has to pay more money. But here's the real question. Who ultimately pays that extra cost? The company? Maybe some of it. But in many cases, that cost gets passed on to consumers. In other words, you. That's why many economists call tariffs a hidden tax. You don't see it printed on your receipt, but you often feel it through higher prices. Now, you might be wondering, if tariffs can make things more expensive, why would the government use them? Imagine an American steel manufacturer competing against foreign companies selling steel at much lower prices. Over time, the American company struggles to compete. Sales decline, jobs are at risk, factories may even shut down. To protect domestic industries, the government can place tariffs on imported steel. Suddenly, foreign steel becomes more expensive. American-made steel becomes more competitive. At first glance, that sounds like a great solution. Jobs are protected, domestic industries gain support. But that's only part of the story, because this is where the ripple effect begins. When steel becomes more expensive, it's not just steel companies that are affected. Automakers pay more. Construction companies pay more. Appliance manufacturers pay more. Home builders pay more. And eventually, those higher costs work their way through the economy. Cars become more expensive. Homes become more expensive. Household products become more expensive. Little by little, prices start rising across multiple industries. And that's where tariffs and inflation become connected. Now, let's talk about Wall Street. Whenever new tariffs are announced, investors pay very close attention. Why? Because the stock market isn't focused on today, it's focused on tomorrow. Investors immediately begin asking questions. Will higher costs reduce corporate profits? Will consumers spend less money? Will inflation rise again? Will the Federal Reserve keep interest rates higher for longer? Suddenly, a single policy decision can affect the outlook for the entire economy. That's why tariff announcements can sometimes trigger massive market reactions. Not because companies suddenly became bad businesses overnight, but because investors start worrying about what comes next. And that's where psychology takes over. The market doesn't move only on facts. It moves on expectations. It moves on emotions. It moves on fear. Imagine you're an investor. You hear that new tariffs could be coming. You don't know exactly which companies will be affected. You don't know how much prices might rise. You don't know how the Federal Reserve will respond. But you do know one thing. Uncertainty is increasing. And when uncertainty rises, many investors choose to sell first and ask questions later. That's why markets can become extremely volatile. This isn't just economics, it's human behavior. People tend to fear losses more than they value gains. And when millions of investors react that way at the same time, markets can swing dramatically. So the biggest question remains, are tariffs good or bad? The truth is that the answer isn't simple. Some industries benefit. Some jobs are protected. Some domestic companies become stronger. At the same time, consumers may face higher prices.
businesses may see rising costs, and investors may face greater uncertainty. That's why tariffs are neither completely good nor completely bad. Their impact depends on how they're designed, how long they remain in place, and how the economy adapts. The next time you hear the word tariff, don't think of it as just another government policy. Think of it as a force that can influence the price of your next car, the cost of everyday goods, the path of inflation, Federal Reserve decisions,
and even the direction of the stock market itself. Because sometimes the biggest forces affecting your money are the ones most people never notice. And in today's America, tariffs may be one of the most powerful hidden forces shaping the future of the economy. So if this video is helpful for you, like and subscribe this channel. I need your support. Thank you, guys.